Ancient Greek philosophy emerged in the 6th century BC and extended throughout the Hellenistic period when ancient Greece were part of the Roman Empire. Philosophy was used to make war out of the earth in a profane way. It deals with a broad diversity of themes such as political philosophy, ethics, metaphysics, ontology, logic, biology, rhetoric, and aesthetics. Numerous philosophers throughout the globe concur that Greek philosophy has affected a lot of Western culture since its beginning. Alfred North Whitehead once noted, "The safest general characterization of the European philosophical tradition is that it consists of a series of footnotes to Plato. Understandable, undamaged lines of mastery lead from ancient Greek and Hellenistic philosophers to early Islamic philosophers, the European Renaissance, and the Age of Enlightenment." Some assert that Greek philosophy was in turn shaped by the elder intelligence, Ryan, and fabled cosmopolitan of the ancient Near East, though this is argued. Martin Litchfield West gives certified approval to this perspective by expressing that contact with Oriental cosmology and theology helped to liberate the early Greek philosophers' imagination. It certainly gave them many suggestive ideas, but they taught themselves to reason. Philosophy, as we understand, it is a Greek creation. Current philosophic oral history was shaped by Socrates as presented by Plato. His birth year was highly controversial. It still is to this very day. Some people say he was born around the 428 or 427 BC mark, while others say 424 to 423 BC, and was alive until he was around 80 years old. And when it comes to his death, people say either like 448 or 347 BC. But anyways, Plato was a philosopher in classical Greece and the founder of the Academy in Athens, the earliest of top-level study in the Western world. He is universally deemed the most crucial person in the evolution of philosophy, especially the Western tradition. As opposed to almost all of his philosophical contemporaries, Plato's whole composition is suspected to have outlived unimpaired for over 2,400 years. Others think that the oldest surviving document was made around 895 AD, 1100 years after Plato's demise. This makes it hard to realize precisely what Plato wrote. Along with his educator Socrates and his most well-known scholar Aristotle, Plato placed the exact beginning of Western philosophy and science, adding to being a foundational individual for Western science, philosophy, and mathematics. Plato has also frequently been referred to as one of the founders of Western religion and spirituality. Plato was the creator of the written dialogue and dialectic format in philosophy. Plato seems to have been the architect of Western political philosophy, with his Republic and Laws among other dialogues, applying some of the ancient remaining treatments of political questions from a philosophical view. Plato's own most assigned philosophical influences are normally thought to have been Socrates, Parmenides, Heraclitus, and Pythagoras. Although a small number of his forerunners' compositions remain in existence, and a lot of what we know about these people this day derives from Plato himself. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy explains Plato as one of the most dazzling writers in the Western literary tradition and one of the most penetrating, wide-ranging, and influential authors in the history of philosophy. He was not the first thinker or writer to whom the word philosopher should be applied, but he was so self-conscious about how philosophy should be conceived and what its scope and ambitions properly are, and he so transformed the intellectual currents with which he grappled, that the subject of philosophy, as it is often conceived, a rigorous and systematic examination of ethical, political, metaphysical, and epistemological issues, armed with a distinctive method, can be called his invention. Few other authors in the history of Western philosophy approximate him in depth and range. Perhaps only Aristotle, Aquinas, and Kant would be generally agreed to be of the same rank. Socrates was born in 470 BC and died in 399 BC. He was a classical Greek philosopher, attributed as one of the beginners of Western philosophy and as being the first moral philosopher of the Western ethical historical convention of thinking. A mysterious man, he made no writings and is known mainly through the descriptions of classical writers' work after his life, especially his graduates Plato and Xenophon. Other references include the simultaneous Antisthenes, Aristippus, and Escines of Sphatos. Aristophanes, a playwright, is the only reference to have been formulated during his existence. Plato's dialogues are among the most complete expositions of Socrates to live from ancient times, though it is uncertain the level to which Socrates himself is hidden behind his best disciple. Throughout his representation in Plato's dialogues, Socrates has become famous for his contribution to the area of ethics, and it is this Platonic Socrates who gives his name to the idea of Socratic irony, Socratic method, and elenchus. The elenchus remains a rarely used device in a broad span of conversations, and is a type of pedagogy in which a sequence of questions is inquired, not only to draw separate replies, but also to persuade basic understanding into the matter at hand. Plato's Socrates also built principal and enduring contributions to the department of epistemology, and his beliefs and method have proven a powerful basis for much of Western philosophy that has followed. Aristotle was born in 384 BC and died in 322 BC, and was an ancient Greek philosopher and scientist born in the town of Stagira Chalcidice, on the northern edge of classical Greece. Alongside Plato, Aristotle is deemed the father of Western philosophy, which from his schooling received almost his whole dictionary, including difficulties and procedures of questions, so impacting almost any shape of understanding known to the present world. His dad, Nicomachus, passed away when Aristotle was young. Thereafter, Paroxenus of Atarnus became his parent. At 17 or 18 years old, he affiliated Plato's academy located in Athens and stayed there until he was 37 years old. His work talks about a wide range of subjects such as physics, biology, zoology, metaphysics, logic, ethics, aesthetics, poetry, theater, music, rhetoric, psychology, linguistics, politics, and government, along with completing the first complete arrangement of Western philosophy. Not long after Plato passed on, Aristotle departed Athens, and at the appeal of Philip II of Macedon, educated Alexander the Great, started in 343 BC. Tutoring Alexander the Great gave Aristotle several chances and a load of supplies. He made a library in the Lyceum, which helped in the making of hundreds of novels, which was scribed on papyrus scrolls. The case that Aristotle was a student of Plato added to his past thoughts on Platonism. But following the passing of Plato, Aristotle absorbed himself in experiential studies and changed from Platonism to empiricism. He was convinced that all people's approach and all of their awareness was based on perception. Aristotle's thoughts on natural sciences act as a cornerstone underlying the majority of his projects. And that concludes today's educational video. If you guys want more of these types of videos, I'd be more than happy to make these. But other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.